Good morning to all. Welcome to all of you to today's English class. Today we are going to discuss a new poem, Daffodils. I Wandered Lonely as a Cloud by William Wordsworth. So it is a very beautiful poem which speaks about daffodils. We know daffodils is a flower which is yellow in color. So this poem was written by William Wordsworth. Let's talk about William Wordsworth. William Wordsworth was born on 7th April 1770 in United Kingdom. He was an English romantic poet who with S.G. Coleridge helped to launch the Romantic age in English literature with their joint publication Lyrical Ballads. His notable works are French Revolution, To the Cuckoo, Solitary Reaper, The Excursion, etc. Now let's talk about the poem I Wandered Lonely as a Cloud, also commonly known as Daffodils, is a lyric poem by William Wordsworth. It is one of his most popular and was inspired by forest encounter on 15 April 1802 that included himself, his younger sister Dorothy, and a long belt of daffodils.
I Wandered Lonely as a Cloud by William Wordsworth. Read philipprevox.org by Delini Jassing. I wandered lonely as a cloud that floats on high o'er vales and hills, when all at once I saw a crowd, a host of golden daffodils, beside the lake, beneath the trees, fluttering and dancing in the breeze. Continuous as the stars that shine and twinkle on the Milky Way, they stretched in never-ending line along the margin of a bay. 10,000 saw I at a glance, tossing their heads in sprightly dance. The waves beside them danced, but they outdid the sparkling waves in glee. A poet could not but be gay in such a jocund company. I gazed and gazed, but little thought what wealth the show to me had brought. For oft, when on my couch I lie, in vacant or in pensive mood, they flash upon that inward eye, which is the bliss of solitude. And then my heart with pleasure fills, and dances with the daffodils. End of poem.
Now let's look into the summary of the poem. The poem has been written by William Wordsworth, a romantic poem. He is known as the poet of nature because of his love for it. Most of his poems describe nature and its beauty. In this poem, he shares with us his exciting experience of enjoyment at the sight of beautiful daffodil flowers. He states that once he was walking in the countryside, he suddenly came across a large number of daffodils growing along the banks of a lake. The flowers were in flood bloom. The cool breeze was blowing. The daffodils were moving and dancing in the breeze. The sight delighted and fascinated the poet, and he looked at the flowers for a long time. This sight left a lasting impression on his memory. As a result, whenever he is alone and in a sad mood, the same sight comes into his imagination. The poet's heart is filled with pleasure. This experience has become a permanent source of pleasure for the poet. Now let's move on to the analysis of each stanza. The first stanza is I wandered lonely as a cloud that flows on highs over vales and hills. When all at once I saw a crowd, a host of golden daffodils, beside the lake beneath the trees, fluttering and dancing in the breeze. We can go through the explanation. In this stanza, the poet has compared himself to a solitary cloud. Just like a cloud floats over hills and valley, the poet too has been walking across the countryside without any aim. Suddenly, while walking beside a lake, he saw a large number of golden daffodils that were fluttering and dancing in the breeze. They were spread out in long rows along the border of the lake and looked very happy. The flowing breeze made the daffodils flutter, and it seemed as they were dancing. The second stanza is continuous as the stars that shine and twinkle on the Milky Way, the stretch in never ending line along the margin of a bay. 10,000 saw I at a glance, tossing their headings sprightly dance. In this stanza, the flowers were compared to the stars. Just like stars, the daffodils were shining as they were golden in color and were twinkling as they were fluttering in the breeze. The poet says that the daffodils were stretched in never-ending line and they were visible as far as he could see along the shoreline of a bay. He further says that the daffodils were tossing their heads as if they were dancing in happiness. Then we can go through the next stanza. Stanza 3. The wave beside them danced, but they outdid the sparkling waves in glee. A poet could not buy the gay. In such a jocund company, I gazed and gazed, but little thought what wealth the show to me has brought. So the explanation of this stanza is, the poet says that there were waves that were dancing in the lake, but were no match for the waves of daffodils rippling in the breeze. The joyful dance of daffodils was a bay better than theirs. The joyful company of daffodils was the ultimate source of pleasure for the poet, and he can feel nothing but happiness in that company. Although he kept on looking at the daffodils, but he could not fully appreciate the scenery before him, because it was in abundance and he could take away just a little bite of it. So the last stanza is, for oft, when on my couch I lie, in vacant or in pensive mood, they flash upon that inward eye, which is the bliss of solitude, and then my heart with pleasure fills and dances with the daffodils. So, in the final stanza, the poet says that whenever he lies on his couch and is in low spirits or when he is sorrowful, the sight of the daffodils flashes in his mind and becomes the source of joy in his solitude. The memory of daffodils takes away all his sorrows and boredoms, thus making him happy, and it seems to him as if his heart is dancing with the daffodils. Let's discuss some new words from the poem. The first word is lonely, which means on his own. Floats, stay or move in the air or water. Continuous, not stopping. Daffodils, a yellow flower. Twinkle means to shine with tiny flashes of light. Sprightly means lively and full of energy. Wealth means to have riches. Company, having people with you. Gaze means start. Couch means sofa or seat. Solitude means being alone. Vacant means empty. Pleasure means a feeling of satisfaction. So the next word is crowd, a group of people. Margin means edge. Glance means to look quickly. Jocund means cheerful. Pensive means sad or melancholy. Broad means transported. Now let's discuss the poetic devices used in the poem. The first one is simile. In this poem, Daffodils, the poet has used several figures of speech to give it a rhetorical effect. Those are elaborated below. Simile is a direct comparison between two different things using as or like. I wandered lonely as a cloud. In the above line, the poet has compared himself to a cloud using as. This is an example of simile. So the next poetic devices is alliteration. Alliteration is the repetition of consonant sound at the beginning or in stressed syllable of nearby words. For example, beside the lake, beneath the tree, and dances with the daffodils. The repetition of the sound B and D in the above lines are example of alliteration. Hyperbole. Hyperbole is an exaggerated statement. When all at once I saw crowd, then 10,000 saw I at a glance. In the two examples above, the poet has used crowds and 10,000 to mean a lot of daffodils. By the must not have counted them there at a glance. This is an obvious exaggeration. So, the last poetic device is personification. The poet has attributed human characteristics to the daffodils. For example, fluttering and dancing in the breeze, tossing their heads in sprightly dance, out did the sparkling waves in glee. All the above lines are personification of the flower. The waves beside them danced. Wordsworth has personified the waves in this line. Let's discuss where and which we will now be able to know and what we have been able to understand. My first question is, while the poet was wandering, what did he see and where did he see them? So the second question is, describe the poet's thought on seeing the daffodils. Third one, what is the wealth of the poet gained? And the last question is, why does the poet say that the waves were dancing? I hope everyone has understood and grasped something about the poem, the new words, literary devices, etc. Now you can have a quick reading of your own. You can better understand the poem when you read again and again. If you have any doubts, you can clear it in the next class. Until we meet the next time, thank you all. Have a nice day.